All right, I'm going to call this meeting of the Technical Review Committee to order. It is Monday, August 19th, 2024 at 1:34 p.m. I'll just note that we'll go around the table to do our determination of a quorum, but I'll ask everyone just to introduce themselves, their name and their title. My name is Doug McLean. I'm the planning director. I'm also the administrative officer for the town of Coventry, and I serve as the chair of the TRC.
I'm Alex Berardo. I'm the principal planner.
Kevin McGee, Director of Public Works.
Joe Levesque, County Engineer.
Josh Chase, Planning Technician.
And I would note that other members of the TRC, such as the Fire Chief, Chief Brown, who serves as the fire chief for all of the applicants, and then the police chief have provided comments. They were not able to attend, but we'll read their comments when the item comes. Next item of business is, and there is a quorum of the TRC present. The next item of the business is the emergency evacuation plan. Essentially, we're going to head right out that door and head right out the building. Very straightforward. The next item of business is the approval of minutes. I've just learned we do not have the July 15th minutes of the TRC prepared yet, so we will table that until the next meeting. The next item of business is the review of the application, the new business for discussion and comments. Before I call the first item, I'm just going to give a little background. We have 3 items on our TRC agenda. There's clearly a handful of people that are interested, and I want to just set the ground rules so everyone understands what's happening and what the rules are. The 3 items are business are Westwood Estates, which is additions to a mobile home park facility. There is a commercial contractor proposal that is at a piece of property near the intersection of Harkney Hill and Nooseneck. And then there's a larger scale proposal for Center of New England. This group provides technical comments to ultimate decision makers. All of these projects will ultimately be heard to some degree by the Planning Commission. Center of New England is going to be heard by the Planning Commission next week on August 28th. The others will be in front of the and the contractor units will be in front of us for a pre-application.
Yes.
On August 28th. Center of New England is going to be a hearing next week. There's been notice out, so that will be a hearing. The other items are, there's no scheduled hearing at this date. If you have questions about process of it, you can always ask us. The TRC is a staff committee that's just providing comments. This is not a hearing. Interested members of the public are certainly welcome to listen in, but there's not an opportunity to provide public comment at this forum. There is an opportunity to provide public comment at the forums in front of the formal decision makers, namely the Planning Commission or the Town Council, depending on the application. So I wanted to give that background for everyone in the audience. With that being said, the first item of business on our agenda, item 4.1, is Westwood Estates, additional mobile home sites. The owner applicant is Hometown America. This is at a pre-application stage. They're looking to add 26 additional mobile home dwelling units. 46. Oh, I'm sorry, thank you. 46 additional mobile home units to its existing mobile home park to bring the total number of mobile homes on site to 512. And this will exceed the maximum density and the total number of mobile home units allowed for this development. The town council would be the ultimate decision maker and can render decisions for that property that would exceed the current zoning limits. So the purpose of the TRC is to receive comments. Why don't, on this one, we'll start with you, Josh. You're the designee for planning for comments on this one. Please feel free to read the comments as they were emailed.
Sure. Planning's comments are, applicant must be sure to abide by Chapter 255, Section 1130C3, which states required separation between mobile homes. Mobile homes shall be separated from each other and from other buildings and structures by at least 30 feet. Applicant must be sure to abide by 255 1130C4, which states setbacks: no mobile home shall be closer than 15 feet to a lot line abutting an internal street, common parking area, or other common areas. Planning does not foresee the need for a traffic study given the scale of the proposed versus existing development at this time. Planning feels there will be no impact to the surrounding community as all adjustments and added homes will be internal to the mobile home district and no activity will take place on or near the borders of the development. Planning seeks clarification on if a new roadway is to be constructed between Poppinjohn Lane and Airport Road. Planning seeks clarification on if a new roadway will be constructed between Poppinjohn Lane and Right Way. Applicants will be required to seek a recommendation from the Planning Commission. Applicants will be required to seek approval from the Town Council for the changes to the allowed zoning in the PD zone. This alleviates the need for relief from the ZBR. And it is anticipated that the applicant will provide a fully engineered plan prior to building department permitting.
Thank you, Josh. Just go around the table in order. Joe, would you mind providing engineering?
So I had one comment. Applicant shall be required to provide all applicable design and calculations that meet state and town drainage standards prior to building department permitting.
Great.
Yeah, I didn't have any written comments, but I do want to note that I didn't see the developer provide any reasoning justification for increasing the maximum density that's allowed or the units are allowed for this development.
Okay. Fair comment. We'll add that one to the record. I'm going to provide background on the other comments we received. We did receive comments from fire, and that was the project needs to meet NFPA fire flow requirements for buildings and hydrants, that fire access to include limiting dead ends. If there are cul-de-sacs, must be of size to turn around fire apparatus. Street lights are not the fire district responsibility as this is a private development. Those are fire's comments. I'll also read the police comments, which police said no comments at this time on that project. Those are all the comments we've received thus far. In this case, those comments are going to be directed to myself, the administrative officer. This will be brought before the town council on a date yet to be determined, but it likely wouldn't be for at least a month and a half or 2 months. And that before it goes to the town council, it will be in front of the planning commission for a recommendation on the matter. And the applicant I know was not able to attend, but all the comments are going to be delivered to them, so they're aware as they head into those processes. So unless there's any other comments or questions from the members of the committee, I think that concludes our review of that matter. All right. We will move on to the next item of business, which is on our agenda 4.2, proposed commercial contractor units. This is a pre-application. It will be a major land development. These are comments to the Planning Commission as just part of this pre-application. No binding decisions are owed. The applicant proposes to develop 1 commercial office building and 2 equipment storage buildings for contractor use, with development occurring in phases. For this one, why don't we go around the other direction? Alex, do you mind starting us with comments on this?
Nope. All right. The 3 that we had for this were: 1, for background, this project is being reviewed as a major land development because the cumulative area of both phases of development amounts to 14,000 square feet. 2nd, consistent with Article 13, Section J, 1B, which states in part that the applicant shall provide combined access drives to adjacent uses within the proposed development. Planning staff requests that the applicant explore potential site designs which would consolidate site access to a single curb cut serving both phases of development. And the 3rd is planning staff seeks clarity on the proposed use of the garage buildings, as the applicant's ability to comply with parking standards for phase 2 currently rests upon their statement that each garage bay has the potential to accommodate 5 vehicles.
Thank you, Alex.
Question for, do we have a drawing of this at all?
We do.
Probably pull it up in
yeah, and I
time.
think we could
I have
put it on the screen.
I have no comments this time, so let's do that.
Okay. Yep. Joe, any comments from engineering?
Please show location of an enclosed trash area. Commercial access on arterial streets shall be designed per ordinance 1233 C.5. Please identify location of loading spaces per ordinance 1203 paving. All parking and loading facilities required under this ordinance, together with driveways, aisles, and other circulation areas, shall be paved with asphalt, a minimum of 2 inches in thickness, applied over no less than 10 inches of compacted gravel. And property has gutters on 3 sides. Post-development stormwater runoff conditions must not result in peak runoff increases in rate or volume from than pre-construction conditions.
And we did get a comment from the fire chief. The comment on this project was need fire department access between the 600 square foot buildings to the 6,000 square foot buildings to the 8,000 square foot buildings, as proposed fire apparatus would need to back up into Harkney Hill to exit property. So they're looking to change the arrangement of interior site circulation. Police provided no comment on the project at this time. Are there any other comments that the committee members have at this time? And we've got it on the screen. And if anyone has a comment that after they see what they see or questions, I'm curious, is the applicant for this proposal in the room at the moment?
The applicant's not, but I'm from Crossland Engineering.
Oh, you're representing them? Okay. I mean, there's no need for you to present, but there's an opportunity if you wish to provide any response or context. But at the end of the day, the comments would be happy to make sure you have a copy of all of them.
Yeah.
They're really being directed to the planning commission. So you just want to be able to respond as it comes in front of the planning commission.
Yeah.
Clearly here, we're exploring some ideas of site design changes, namely for, where you see the 2 sites are being treated as if they're separate. I think there's a desire for fire accessibility through them. Okay.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments on this at this time? All right. Hearing none, we'll move on to the next item of business. This will be for the Center of New England. These are for planning comments to the Planning Commission. This is a master plan phase of a major land development with an associated dimensional variance. This application is due to be heard in a public hearing in front of the Planning Commission at our August 28th meeting next week. The owners are Matthew McGowan as the receiver for Commerce Park, and also the Commerce Park Associates for LLC and Catapult Realty LLC. Those are the owners. The applicant is Star Capital LLC. The applicant proposes to develop 362 dwelling units in duplex style buildings, as well as 350 dwelling units and multifamily buildings for a total of 712 units. The proposal includes associated utilities and infrastructure. This application requires a dimensional variance for parking requirements, and those dimensional variants will be heard via unified development review, meaning that the project and the variance will be heard by the Planning Commission. And I'll just note as background on this one, we do not anticipate a decision at next week's Planning Commission meeting. We still do not have a traffic study on this. We do not have the level of info that we feel is appropriate to render a decision from planning staff, but it is ultimately a decision of the Planning Commission, and the purpose of these comments are just to provide the Planning Commission with the background we have at this time. Why don't we go around the other way? But I know this is not a project you have comments on, Josh. Joe, do you want to provide your comments on this?
Sure. It is a priority that all drainage be designed and constructed correctly due to the project's density and proximity to existing neighborhoods. Post-development stormwater runoff conditions must not result in peak runoff increases in rate or volume from pre-construction conditions. Engineering recommends that peer reviews be conducted for drainage and traffic engineering at preliminary plan phase. Additional plan review will be performed at further stage of design and after the peer reviews are completed. The adequacy of the existing sewer infrastructure in both the Center of New England and the London Turnpike needs investigation and confirmation. Engineering recommends that a review be conducted as soon as possible.
Thank you, Joe. Is that your comments?
Yes.
All right, Mr. McGee?
My comments are on parcel 2, the north and east boundary line. Suggested the landscape buffer be increased to 40 feet from the 10-foot proposed. All parcels, please note the locations of all the dumpster locations. And my question also is, are the specified visitor parking areas sufficient for the entire parcel? And will multiple areas be considered space throughout the parcel? And that's my written comments. And I just want to go back and reiterate to the prior comments from the last meeting. This was up. It's imperative that the crossing be completed. The culvert crossing across the stream.
Yep.
And that the traffic's going to be done, that we need to have traffic light at Hopkins Road instead of New Boulevard on the west side.
And so that represents a new comment.
That was what was commented. I just want to reiterate those. Every meeting, I'm going to reiterate those.
Oh, that was commented at pre-app.
The last meeting.
And I think I think you had those comments as well. So you're basically just making sure your comments that's were for pre-app are added to these comments for the master plan, and I can do that. And I would note that it's understood that this project is going to help facilitate the construction of the crossing, although that action isn't happening by this specific applicant. That action is happening by the receiver entity. So it's essentially, while all of this is connected, the applicant isn't directly responsible for the work of the crossing, but I know the applicant is going to provide us with helpful traffic analysis as it relates to those types of changes. All right. So with that being said, any other comments, Mr. McGee? Yep. Up to you, Alex.
There's a couple of them. Planning staff seek information or documentation such as an access easement, which might establish the applicant's right to connect to and facilitate passage over the private roadways within Assessor's Plat 13, Lot 22. Sheet 6 of the site plan indicates that Assessor's Plat 13, Lot 14 and Assessor's Plat 14, Lot 65 would be dedicated to single-family / townhouse use. For clarity, staff requests the applicant confirm they have decided to construct townhouse-style duplexes on these lots, as indicated on the following sheet of the plan set, as well as in the project narrative. Third, a traffic study is anticipated as part of this immediate master plan review to provide further detail on key aspects of the proposal and will be subject to peer review. Fourth, the proposal will require a variance from parking requirements. The applicant seeks to provide 1.5 parking spaces per multifamily dwelling unit on Assessor's Plat 14, Lot 1, where the zoning code requires 2 per unit as a matter of course. Planning staff seek additional justification and/or expert information regarding the rationale for the request. 5, the applicant's requested waivers from Article 13, Section B, Street Design Standards, and Article 14, Specifications for Construction of Required Improvements of the Subdivision Regulations. They also requested waivers from providing 3 plans: a soil erosion and sedimentation control plan, a grading plan, and a utility plan at the master plan phase, instead proposing to submit these with its preliminary plan application. Then please provide a more precise estimate of anticipated height for the 4-story multifamily residential buildings on development parcel 4. And recognizing that the landscape plan is conceptual at this point in time, staff seeks additional detail on generalized landscaping / buffering treatments for visual screening between the multifamily residential buildings and single-family residential abutters. And lastly, planning staff requests that the applicant submit a brief letter or narrative itemizing the specific aspects of the relevant subdivision regulations for which waivers are sought, where such details are available at this time.
Thank you, Alex. And we did receive comments from Fire. Those comments were that for this project, it needs to meet NFPA fire flow requirements for buildings and hydrants, fire access to include limiting dead ends. If there are cul-de-sacs, must be of size to turn around fire apparatus, and streetlights as a private development are not the fire district responsibility. We did receive comments from the police that arrived I believe this morning or over the weekend. Their comment on this project was just awaiting traffic study and peer review for further comment. And that is all of the comments we have on the proposal. Before I ask the applicant if they wish to provide any further context, any other comments from staff at this time? All right. The applicant is here. Again, this is just providing comments to the planning commission, but if you guys have any additional context, clarifications, if you even have information in response to these, we'll certainly, hear it now if you'd like.
So, Kelly Morris Salvatore for the applicant. I'm here with Paul Bannon, our traffic engineer, and Len Bradley just walked in. He's the civil engineer. So I would just say, we did look at these quickly this morning. In terms of traffic, we expect to be able to submit the traffic study for you and FAR within the next day or two. We just want to, so that's with regard to the traffic light. We do understand that there needs to be a traffic light at some point. I'm going to let Paul talk about that. But at what point, as a layperson, I don't know exactly when, but I'm thinking between Paul Bannon and John Shevlin at PAR, they would make a determination of when that should be happening.
And just for the record, so everyone's familiar, John Shevlin and PAR Corporation is the peer reviewer for the topic of traffic on this. They've already been engaged. They're already beginning to coordinate the review of the information that the applicant is providing. So that peer reviewer is going to provide the town with guidance on the right levels of information to have at the right decision-making points.
Okay, and then just going over the planning staff comments, we will have easements or contractual agreements on any and all access points, some of which we have to get approved by the court through the receivership, some of which, we just present as an easement, but you will have those at some point, probably a preliminary plan, which is normal.
Okay.
Single family townhouse. Yeah, I think that's just the type. So right now we're proposing duplex units of varying sizes for sheet 6. We just went over the traffic study, should be getting that momentarily. In terms of parking, so as you know, the town has requested that we provide LMI units, which we have agreed to provide up to 15%. I would suggest that the comprehensive permit statute, low and moderate income statute, provides that when you're providing those types of units, it's 1 space per bedroom for the entire development. We're not going there. We're going to 1.5. Same thing with adaptive reuse. I think the state has given a directive that when you're providing LMI units, you have to, make some concessions on parking. I did take a quick look at Joe Lombardo's fiscal impact study relative to the population. I think at most 2 people would live in one of these units. The 2 space per dwelling unit could be up to, as many as 4 or 5 bedrooms. So obviously when you get down to studios, 1s and 2s, you're just not going to need the number of parking spaces. We intend to provide what's appropriate for the market. And it's only on the lot 4 over by Arnold Road where we're proposing less than what's required.
And then before you move on to the next, I think obviously the traffic study hasn't been submitted. To some degree, traffic engineering might be able to provide some analysis of what is considered an appropriate amount of parking for a facility that is largely studios and 1s with peppering in some 3s. Is it a third studios, a third 1s, and a third?
I believe that's what we said, yes.
Yeah, and so I understand that that's there. I think we'll just be looking for you guys to articulate the details around that. I know there's studies that exist based on the number of bedrooms. So I think, basically, I think what we're looking for, obviously, we don't need it for next week, but as soon as you have it, we'll incorporate it into our review processes, putting that expert information on, and it might be that Joe Lombardo has added some of that as well and pulling it out and trying to say, hey, here's the rationale, almost provide a narrative that provides that expertise and calls out where the experts have provided their evidence. We understand the ask. So I think that, within this type of setting, I certainly understand that there would be a rationale for it. I think we just want to make sure we connect it with the expert documentation.
I can provide, I've done a number of studies for apartment complexes and have base data from a number of concerned properties that have Hundreds of units.
Yeah, I know that
Their
the
rates.
parking demand for a mix of ones and studios versus a parking demand, if it was a mix of 3 and 4 bedrooms, would be very different. The type
You
of,
said it's only for the apartments, correct?
Yeah,
Right.
it's
Yeah,
only for
yeah.
this lot 4 on the
Right.
Arnold Road that we're
So-
looking for the variance.
all of the other duplexes that are
Meet the
occurring
criteria.
would meet the criteria of 2 parking spaces, and I'm sure you're providing them in the driveway or garage.
Driveway. and
Yes.
garage, Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, just to add what Ellie and Paul said is that for us, from a site design perspective, it's a balance between making sure there's enough parking. We don't want to build 2 per unit and find out that a lot of them are empty most of the time, creating a lot of excess stormwater. So it's a balance between minimizing impervious, but providing the right amount of coverage. So as Paul said, we have a lot of industry standard as well as our client standard, what's required. And we can provide that as in an area to back that up.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I think, you know, as you do it, generally, I think part of your justification for the 1.5 spaces, you should address, you know, the events that might occur and how there might be birthday parties or
Mhm.
events that require that. I can understand in a facility of this size that you'll probably have
Yeah.
some opportunity to make arguments, but I think we just want to see you address the issue holistically, regular residential use
Yep.
as well as the occasional event that needs additional spaces, you know, make the demonstration that the parking that you're provided would be sufficient to that, and then we'll provide that demonstration to the planning commission and they'll incorporate it in their review.
And I just want to be clear, you are considering the fact that we're providing 15% LMI, which we're not required to.
Oh, yeah,
So that's-
we certainly
yeah.
see that as a positive
Yeah.
aspect of the proposal.
The next comment is relating to certain waivers relating to plans that we think are normally, I mean, always submitted at preliminary plan. Len, do you want to speak to those at soil erosion
Yeah,
sediment
just-
control?
Yeah,
grading
we
and
just-
facility?
some of that, like,
Yeah.
makes
Yeah,
sense.
we just don't have that level of engineering done. We wouldn't proceed with that engineering till we have a master plan approval. So to show grading and that we will provide it to the town, just we're not there yet.
I think this is an item where I think our master plan is asking for a bit more than the typical master
Yeah.
plan checklist.
Yeah.
We understand that the information that you're providing right now generally covers the conceptual level of review.
In a way, it's broken up kind of. That's this piece that speaks to the 3, this says plan, grade plan, utility plan. That's more informative in nature. I guess this first section where street design standards and construction, that kind of connects to the last bullet point.
Yeah.
That's more of the itemization.
Yeah, and that's so some of the waivers are seeking substantive waivers. For example, it might be street widths.
Yeah.
And I know you're going to be drawing upon these substantive waivers are drawing upon the old code. So I think because this is old code, we really want you as the applicant to call out what is the substantive code of record? What is it that you're asking for? And I think really at a master plan stage, sometimes the engineering might still shift on these things.
Right.
It's understood that some of these things, you know, if we provided a waiver at master, you'd need to ask for it again at prelim. But I think it's worth our time at master to have the conversation. Where is there something where the board or commission or a staff person would not feel comfortable with a certain waiver?
Mhm.
Where would they feel comfortable? That will give you good direction for your design moving forward to preliminary plan. If there's, for example, a strong feeling on a minimum width for a street in this
Yep.
type of setting, let's have that conversation
Sure.
now as part of master. And I think that
Yeah.
will help us to understand.
Yeah, again, from a design perspective, our goal is to, really put down the amount of pavement that's needed to safely and adequately service the development. Excess pavement leads to excess stormwater runoff, which, we just want to try to balance it. So when we do our pavement width design, we work closely with Paul from a traffic engineering perspective. We run the auto turn for emergency access to make sure and make all the turns. So we're not looking to design a unsafe road. We just want to do the standard that's required, and we can provide a detailed breakdown, outline of all the details that we're looking for.
And understood. And just for point of clarity, it's almost obvious, but I want to make sure I'm on the same page. This is all proposed as private roadways, correct?
Yes.
And all private infrastructure as well, except for where it obviously begins to touch into public right of ways such as Arnold,
Right.
or other areas. Yeah. Yeah,
Mhm.
understood. Okay. Thank you for that.
You asked to provide a more precise estimate of the anticipated height for the 4-story multifamily residential buildings on development parcel 4.
Yeah,
Do you know, I I think Tim might have estimated a little high.
Yeah, we can look at that closer. The idea there, what the applicant's looking to do is, what we call, podium construction. So parking underneath.
Okay.
So it'd be like reinforced concrete pedestal, and then 4 stories above that. So we'll look at the
Would the first story be parking? Or would parking be?
No, it would
grade?
be at grade.
It'd be at grade?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's, you know, you can see where we have these driveways that kind of touching into the building.
Understood. Yeah.
That
I
would
see.
be, you know, some premium parking for, you know, the tenants, and then with excess parking for, you know, if there's a second car or for guests.
We did
So,
that at the Knightsville
yeah.
project.
Yeah.
So the whole idea here is, you know, that's a desire. So we can very easily, you know, look at the height and the density and get and provide that.
And my one question would be, I know we asked you guys as sample illustrations of what the buildings would look like to provide renderings, and I know you did. Would you say that they capture that pedestal style of multifamily that you're
I'm
seeing?
not sure it's detailed enough.
Yeah, I don't even remember what we provided.
Yeah, it
honestly.
was mostly
We provided the single duplex units.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, you didn't provide an imagery of the,
I
let
don't
me
remember
look.
that.
Yeah, this is the same.
Yeah, if you scroll
Yeah.
through.
Yeah,
see,
but
we
not
haven't
the
loaded fully
podium.
yet.
looks like it's still loading, so you're drawing on the web here. Here we go.
Yeah, so it's
So
duplex.
that would be the duplex on
Yes.
2 and 3.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So I think what we would be looking for, if, well,
Yeah, so
there's
that's-
your apartment.
Yeah.
So I
So
think
this
what-
really doesn't show it the way,
Yeah.
because you can see there's dwelling units on the
Mhm,
first
yeah.
floor, so it may be that, you know, upper level, so
Yeah.
we'll clarify that for you.
I think what I would ask, I mean, we're at a conceptual level. The renderings aren't a requirement. I think we're just trying to find documents that begin to communicate the
Right.
look
Yep.
of this. I'd say as we approach next week's meeting, in advance of it, if you have documentation that you think adequately conveys a sample type of design, which it looks like you're thinking, a first floor of parking and then 4 stories on top of that. Is that what what I'm understanding?
Yes.
Okay, so I think we'd still like to get a better feel for that in sample renderings, and I'd like to still get a better idea on the height. You don't need height relief, but there's still I think you're allowed up to 100 feet of height
Yeah.
in certain settings. There's still, we'd like to have a better idea.
Right,
of
this
what
is
you're
not gonna be
seeing.
100.
No,
Yeah, so, you know, basically, if you have a range and you want, you know, and we're not gonna, this isn't a moment where we say, okay, thou shalt not go above, but we
Right.
need a range to work with.
Okay.
We're talking 45 to 55, you know, that'd be information we'd like.
yeah, I'll work with Tim and his team and get perspectives like this that show, you know, basically podium style construction.
Thank you.
And then we didn't think our landscape architect was necessary for him to come today,
No.
but there is a comment
Yep.
relating to visual screening between multifamily residential buildings and single-family residential abutters. I would like more clarification on that, because when we first talked, we were focusing on entrances and you know, points of connection in terms of where you wanted to see substantial landscaping. Obviously, we're gonna landscape the whole development, but I'd like to understand what you are looking for at this stage.
I think at this stage, there's one particular area, or, you know, I don't want to limit it just to the one.
Yeah, right.
But when I see the northern property boundary there, where the closest distance between the multifamily
Yeah.
buildings and those residential abutters that live on Jade Road,
Here,
Mhm.
here.
I think we'd like to have a better idea of conceptually,
Yeah.
what are you looking for a
Yep.
buffer treatment?
Okay.
Yeah, what we can do
So
is,
here.
and I've done this before with our landscape architects, we can do a cross-section through there that shows a cross-section of the topography
Yep.
and how we would plant that area, so you can see a typical conceptual cross-section.
At master plan though? Okay,
Yeah, John's done that for us
Okay.
in the past. It's a simple exercise.
I think it's just good to have, even on a conceptual level, even if this is something that might change, what
Yeah.
are the visual screening protections that you have in mind as you look to site these larger scale buildings closer to some of the existing
Yeah.
single family residential neighborhoods?
So typically we try to do with a lot of vegetation between, you know, like a low evergreen screening, you know, like I'll say an arborvitae. We know there are issues with arborvitaes in the deer eating them. So an arborvitae that gets you maybe from the ground level to 10 feet and then some deciduous canopy trees. The landscape within will be a lot of ground cover, ground level. And then we also look at, if we need to do an opaque fence in certain areas where vegetation just won't do it. That's usually what we kind of keep in our portfolio for screening. So I'm going to leave it to John. I'll describe to John what our mission is. And, like I said, he and I have done this for many years together. And, that cross section can be applied anywhere. Obviously, we've got the tree service here.
Yeah.
We'd probably want to do screening to screen us from them.
Yeah,
With the Jade Road residents,
we're doing that actually now.
And actually, so that little section of land that's being transferred to
Yes,
the butter.
and we
Right.
have an
So you
agreement
would
with
be
them.
doing, it's almost like that area where you've got a dotted line with
Yeah.
your landscaping.
Yep.
I think, it's good for us to be mindful of these things. That's why we're asking questions to try to ascertain the building height. You can imagine the point of perspective and the angles from some of these closest to butters. They're going to be curious what height of landscaping would accomplish screening.
Right.
Do you know what the grade differential here is? Are we lower because of the sand and gravel operation? They dig that up?
I'd have to look. I want to say they are higher than us over here, but there's a lot of topography up and down. So when we look at in all honesty, the detail that I'm talking about is something we would implement wherever we abut a residential unit, because it's not only privacy for them, but it's privacy for us. If we have a townhouse, we want to basically have a buffer between the backyards, so people don't feel like all of a sudden they've got someone in their backyard now. So
Conversely, also my comment about section 2 was the same thing, where you have the 10-foot proposed buffer now. I want like to see it increased to 40 feet.
Are you talking about in site
Site 2 on the east and north side of that?
Yeah.
From 10 foot, side of this table.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. 10 foot's a little.
No, I think he's
narrow.
Keep up and down.
It's
2 and 3.
Yeah, come on down.
So you can see parcel 2. Scroll
Down
or up.
Up.
You want to see the northern section.
Right there, south and east, along.
Yeah, so we have,
and across King Street.
Those are
so we have a lot of real estate there. I mean, 40 feet.
10 feet. 40, according to the plan, it says 10-foot landscape buffer.
Yeah, we can increase that. I mean, 10
But
feet
that's
is
just the actual vegetation planted, right?
n-
Not necessarily the setback. Two different things.
No.
so the 10-foot landscape buffers probably comes from the town requirement.
Yeah.
And I think what you're asking is you'd like to see more than 10 feet.
Continue it for you, you have a set parcel 4, bring it to.
Yeah, but I can't commit to 40 all the way over there, because I don't want to, like, some of these units may be right at 40. So maybe we put 20 there, which would be, 20 feet of landscaping is pretty substantial. So we can increase it more than the 10.
That density is pretty substantial too, so.
Yeah.
To make sure I understand it, right now is the plan for some of those areas to utilize the existing vegetation.
If there's mature vegetation, we're going to keep it.
Yeah, and I would wholeheartedly support that to keep.
Oh, yeah.
And this isn't going to end up being privately, well, it will all be privately owned and maintained, but individual property owners will essentially have their condo, but the property itself is going to be
Condo
maintained.
association.
And I'd say, we're looking for some degree of protection of that existing vegetative buffer. And if there's areas in which the existing vegetative buffer is significantly decreased, we may be looking for some planting,
of course,
to augmentations here and there.
Yeah.
I would note, I think that the primary focus for me is really the taller buildings. Those buildings, they're going to be 2-story.
Right, they're not as bad.
So I do think that, and I understand that there is a denser setting there, but it's certainly a very different visual impact than the taller multifamily. So I think we want to see a good buffer around the whole thing. I'm going to be looking specifically at a dense, tall buffer, especially on that northern property line. For the others, I think we do want to see buffering, and as we move it forward, I think I'll want to understand where is there not a sufficient existing buffer, and then let's identify those areas and let's start to have a conversation around what additional plantings could be made.
Yeah, and to your point, if there's healthy vegetation in that strip, we're not going to cut it now,
especially if it's tall.
Right. Even if there's like a healthy white pine or healthy arborvitae or cedar, we're going to keep it, and we'll fill in.
Understood.
So, and that's when we get John Carter into the next stage, he'll go out there and walk that line, inventory it, and the substantial species that need to be saved, you know, we'll flag them and save them.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, you can't buy the trees. If there's substantial trees out there, you can't buy them today.
Yeah.
You know, they take 5 years to grow in, so.
Understood. And it does not look like the applicant is looking to utilize interconnection through any of the rights of ways on, let's just say the neighborhood that exists to the north and east of the subject, but you're looking to connect through the Highlands.
Correct.
You're looking to connect down to center of New England.
Correct.
And you're looking to connect to Arnold.
Correct. Correct.
And
Yeah.
it does look like there are rights of ways to that existing neighborhood.
Yes.
So to some degree, we may want to have something memorialized around that. And I did not get any comments from fire that suggest they wanted any fire gate or connection for their own purposes. Is it just that one tulip? Is that the only one?
Tulip, and there's a
yeah,
Lydia
the-
here, and
The end,
then
the south
and a
of the
jade.
Okay, yeah.
So there are right of ways. Again, you know, that was the way planning was, you know, was done it when that subdivision was done. It was always promoted to have connectivity to
Yeah, understood.
undeveloped land. So our goal is not to connect to it. If fire wants emergency access, I mean, you know, I could maybe understand Tulip, you know, coming in maybe here. You know, this is kind of a long dead end, but I will leave it up to the fire department. But we're not planning to connect our roads to
Yeah.
it. We want to keep everything private and inclusive.
And Chief Brown apologizes he couldn't be here. He did provide comment. There was not a comments that he was seeking a fire gate or
Right.
any accessibility through there. It's a good valid point to bring up, and I assume that because of the differences in density, that there's probably some degree of perhaps not wanting to create interconnection.
Yeah.
But also, you know, from fire protection, I assume if we eventually want a fire gate or some sort of connection, you're going to want to know that before you head
Right.
into preliminary plan design.
Yeah.
I'd suggest, you know, because Chief Brown isn't here, we might want to have an ability to circle back.
Yeah.
I know there'll be further conversations on
Yeah.
those kind of details as we go.
Well, one of the things we can do is look at where the stations are and what the shortest route time is into the development, because if we can provide that, then that's going to help us understand where they're going to access first.
Yeah. Yeah, I imagine some of the ends of those rights of ways are also probably unimproved. They provide a bit of their natural buffer as
Yeah,
well.
there's encroachments in here, like this house appears to have encroached into the right of way. So that's why we're trying to stay away from some of those.
Understood.
People have been using that lane for multiple years and
Yep.
may not realize it's a public right of way, or they do and just keep using it. So
Understood. Yeah, I don't think planning is seeking interconnection at this point, but I think it's good to be aware of. It came up as Director McGee was speaking about the need to maintain the buffer. It dawned on me that we need to make sure that we're not seeking interconnection either.
Correct.
All right. All right. Did you guys have any other points you wanted to provide a brief response on?
I don't know if Len, you want to touch on any of the engineering things that we may not have covered. I think I covered all the planning comments.
yeah, I mean, as far as the engineering goes with regards to stormwater, we have taken no issue with, you know, drainage design being correctly done. We will design in accordance with the state and local stormwater regulations. Do that on a lot of projects. We understand that there'll be peer reviews required. We don't take any issue with that. And with regards to sewer infrastructure, we have gone to the sewer authority and have gotten feedback from them that there's capacity available. And as we move further into the design, we'll look at the hydraulics of the system. But it was designed, the system that's out there was designed for this full build out. So we anticipate we're not going to have any capacity issues with water or sewer.
I think we covered all the comments.
Okay. Did any of the discussion generate any additional formal comments from any of the committee members here today? All right. I mean, I think you have a sense of some of the information we're looking for. Obviously, you know, if you provide it in advance, if you can get it to me by noon on Thursday, then we could incorporate it. And if it's brief information by noon on Thursday, we can incorporate it into the staff report, which will help make sure that that's information we can put on the table. Obviously, you can also address it verbally. And we expect, I mean, there'll be a big focus of this review is going to be about the traffic. And obviously, here we are, we're still awaiting the traffic study. We understand that there'll be discussions with staff about that before, you know, that is something that we can respond to with a great degree of detail. Feel free to include traffic information as part of your presentation to the commission, but obviously staff and our peer review might not be in a position to respond.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, it'll be just a general discussion.
okay, yeah, I mean,
Let them,
yeah, but I mean, the study might arrive in time for us to just distribute it, but without much context.
I
So,
don't know if you'd want to distribute it without having, before they have a chance to peer review.
some of my commission members are fairly savvy and they might generate a question or two that might be good to get some response to. I mean, for me, if you guys submit it, it's part of the application. I'd rather say it's up there and I might just guide my commission to say, staff don't have an ability, or staff are not commenting until we get a peer review. But if the commission member or two has a few questions, but I think the whole commission should understand that we're not looking to have a detailed technical discussion about traffic until our peer reviewer has fully engaged and provided us with guidance.
Feedback.
I mean, that's just proper procedure. And we understand because of that, we're not likely going to have a detailed discussion about traffic until our September meeting. That sound fair?
Mhm.
All right. We'll be, looking forward to any additional information you provide. We'll anticipate the presentation next week. For any members of the public that might be interested, I would note that the density that the project is seeking is allowed by right. They are basically seeking this as a project that is utilizing older zoning code, as was established through a consent agreement with the town council. This is all the result of previous legal proceedings, and it's not worth getting into more details at this time. The only zoning relief the applicant is seeking is for parking. For the multifamily, instead of providing 2 spaces per dwelling unit, for the multifamily, they want to seek to provide 1.5 spaces per dwelling unit for the multifamily. Other than that, this is a by right proposal. I hope that provides a little bit of clarity. Again, if anyone wishes to comment on this project, you can do so in writing in advance of the meeting, and comment in writing we will provide to the Planning Commission. You can also provide your comment verbally at the meeting as well. That's the end of my general announcements. Any last comments on this? Any last
No, thank you for your time.
You're welcome. And with that being the last matter of business on the agenda, this meeting of the Technical Review Committee is considered adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. 22.
2:22.